All right. Hello, and welcome to Toxic Talk Show with Chelsea. This is episode 3. This is my first interview with a survivor slash victim. And just before we get to him, I just wanted to introduce that I just now, brand new, just made an Instagram for this podcast. It is called Talking, TALKIN / talk show, one word. Talking Talk Show. That's my brand new Instagram account for this brand new podcast. So go over and give it a like, give it a follow, and you'll see updates of upcoming episodes and plans for the show. You can also go follow me personally at Chelsea Lee Hearn, CHELSEYLEEHEARN at Instagram. And the link in my bio has everything and anything under the sun that I talk about, that I use, that I have discounts for, that I've created, and resources. So those will all be up on the podcast Instagram soon because I just made it. But for the time being, you can go over to my personal Instagram account. One other housekeeping thing I'd like to announce is I'm doing a contest. This is a brand new podcast. I'd like to give away a lucky winner or multiple, depending on the response, $100 Amazon gift card. And in order to win that, you need to subscribe to this podcast, give it 5-star reviews, and give it a great review. Rate it 5 stars, and then give it a review. Not a crappy review, because obviously I'm not going to pick you if that's the case. But give it a raving review, and depending on how many's there, I'll pick one or multiple. So that's my contest. I'll leave it open till after the beginning of the brand new year, because we all want to start this new year with good news and good vibes. So with that being said, I want to go ahead and introduce to you Steven Silver. He is from Albany, New York, and he is somebody that I have worked with in the past that has been so graciously kind to be my first interview, my first guest. So welcome, and I appreciate you.
Thank you for having me, Chelsea. Yeah, I'm Steve Silver from Albany, New York.
So tell us a little bit about yourself right now. Let's talk about the now. How are you doing? What do you do for a living? How do you have kids? Age?
Okay, I'm actually right now doing very good, probably fantastic, I would say. I'm an Albany police officer. I'm a community policing officer in one of the hardest areas in Albany. And I've been divorced twice. I have 3 kids. I have an 11-year-old daughter, a 4-year-old son, and a daughter who's about to turn 1 in about 10 days.
Oh, so you've had a new baby since we've spoke.
Yes, this is might be part of the ending of my story,
Okay.
but you know, it was something that happened, and now it's starting to progress from a friendship with this woman into a relationship.
Okay.
So I get more detailed into that soon if you'd like.
Okay.
It's all my story is like 3 layers long. It's
Aren't
crazy.
they all? Don't we all? I'm sure through episode after episode after episode that I make of this, people will hear my story, and I have many layers like we all do. And I'm actually writing a book because I have so many layers. And
I already have a title from what my book would be.
Me
so
too.
I'm already.
What's yours? What'd you say yours was?
I didn't. Yeah, I have a title for it.
Oh, okay.
So it's a play on a movie. So
okay. Yeah, I got my title, and I was gonna name my podcast this, but there's a word narc in it that we all know in this community that a narc means a narcissist. And when we call people narcs and we talk about narcs, we know what we're talking about. But just came across a title with the word narc in it. Narcotics is what a lot of people give feedback to, and they think it's like Narcotics Anonymous, and so.
Or it could be as a narc is a street word for a snitch.
A tattletale, right.
Yeah.
I X that, but my book cover will have it, and it'll make sense once it out. But we're not here to talk about me. We're not here to talk about my book. We're here to talk about why you specifically are a special guest for this podcast. And for me, and for anybody that listens that knows this, emotional abuse, toxic relationships, specifically narcissists, narcs, are really generally come from a male. I forgot what the percentage rates were, and I'll look it up on another podcast to give you the exact facts, but it's a higher percentage rate that males are more likely to be the narcissist, the abuser. And for everyone in my community or anybody that I've seen in these Facebook communities, majority of them are women. But you specifically are male, duh. And the same kind of stuff happened to you. So if you don't mind, I know you have a lot of layers, but if you could go back to that toxic relationship, narcissists have a thing called love bombing and gaslighting. And these are words some people don't know about, but you're shaking your head yes for those who can't see me, because we all know it. We've all been through it. We've all done it. So tell the listeners and me, because it's been a really long time, I forgot, where your situation started. Like, how did you meet her? How did she love bomb you?
I can remember everything perfectly. I met her on Match.com, and I was a year after my divorce with my first ex-wife, which we are very very good friends, and she's part of the story as well because she actually fought for me as well.
Interesting. Now, do you have
yeah.
kids? The first.
I have a daughter with her, and we actually do a lot of co-parenting things together with her and her husband. Awesome. And we're really good friends. You know, we just got married young. We were kids, and it was more like a friendship than love.
Right.
So by the time I met my second ex, I don't know if I should use her name or not, because
names.
Huh?
I wouldn't use names on this.
Okay. So
her.
Yeah, her.
Her is
all right.
To the narc. You could say the narc.
Yeah, I can the narc. All right, that works. So I met her first date at a restaurant, and she's biracial. She's half black, half white. Looks very exotic. Blonde, curly, twisty hair. Very outgoing, bubbly personality. Like takes the whole energy of the room is on her. And at the time, she was very exotic looking. She was beautiful. Her personality and her just her aura was what I was looking for, because I was just coming. I was a year out of a divorce, and I was doing the single thing with the ladies on Match. And at this point, when I met her, I was ready for a relationship again. And so she pumped me up. She pumped my esteem up. And but then actually it was the first time something happened was we were probably a month and a half into dating, and it was a New Year's Eve party, and I brought her to a friend's New Year's Eve party, and it was more like a dinner party. And on the way home, she bitched me out because it was too boring and she could have went out with her friends out drinking. So I dropped her off at her apartment, and I didn't speak to her for 3 weeks. And then it was, she started calling, texting, and I'm like, the sex was really good. Of course, it always is right at the beginning. And, I did miss her. And so we decided to get back into a relationship.
Did you miss her, or did you just miss being with someone?
I probably just, it was almost 10 years ago now. So I probably miss being with somebody and having fun and doing things together. I wanted that again.
Right.
So then fast forward maybe 5 months later, the spring comes.
Before you fast forward, let me just ask you. You said that she was putting you, like gassing you up, like giving you all of the feels, like making you feel like top of.
What
examples that she was saying or doing? Love
Um,
bombing. I want to give some examples of like what these people do in the beginning.
it's texting all day long, all the time, giving into all the sexual fantasies and doing all that in bed. And then the big thing that really got me, actually, that hooked me, was my daughter. My daughter was about 2 years old at the time. And it was like, there was like an instant connection between the two of them. And she really got me into the relationship with doing the stepmommy thing and the cooking and the baking and the hair and the nails as the years went on as well. And
I like to call it.
so the hook was my daughter. And then 8 months later, 5 or 6 months later, I actually tried to break up with her. I realized at that point we were probably together 8 months, and I realized that she was high maintenance, and I didn't know anything about narcissism at the time. I just thought narcissism was somebody who was vain and was all egotistical and just all about them physical selves.
Mhm.
And so that caused a huge fight. And that she said nobody ever called her high maintenance. And then she hooked me again by saying, my daughter's name is Chloe. We have a Chloe, we have a family, we have this, we have that. So it was the family part, because she knew how badly I wanted a family. And so we were together 6 years. The majority of the relationship was based on alcohol and drinking and partying. She's like an event planner for a pharmacy and doctors. So she plans events, and everything was a party. And their trips to Cancun, and that we would get in fights all the time about not fighting. And as time went on, it was just everything was about the drinking and the partying and living the high life. The boat, the truck, the house,
All the toys, all the show.
all the toy. It was keeping up with the Joneses. I was working up overtime like crazy because all of her friends had money,
Right.
and I'm just I'm a cop. I'm a blue collar guy. So
This is like mirror.
yeah,
Same
and
single mom, same
yeah,
thing, same.
yeah,
So,
and then I broke up with her in 2013 for about 3 weeks again, because over a fight over a dog. And actually, my dog, I have him here now. He's a husky.
I've
That's
seen
what now?
I've seen pictures.
Yeah. So basically, we got in a fight, and she was right. I'd give her that. I wanted a dog, and we lived in a two apartment, 2 bedroom apartment. So I broke up with her, and for that 3 weeks, it was amazing. And all these other women came out of nowhere, and they're like, "She treats you like shit. She's mean to you. She disrespects you. I can take good care of you." I had like 3 women that were my friends, and one of them was just a friend. And every time she was with me or my daughter would tell her how much me and the narc would fight all the time. We always fought. We're always fighting. Um, and so she looped me by saying, again, we have a Chloe, we have a family. If you can have a dog if we get a house. So she knew I wanted a family. So I got back together with her.
Compromise.
She knew I wanted a family. And so this is amazing. So within 2 weeks, we found the house, and we went every day looking at houses.
You got a house
And
and a dog.
I got a house, a dog, and a ring, all in 1 month.
Oh my gosh.
And she wasn't happy. So I'm
Yeah.
getting all that. So I'm a veteran as well. So I had a VA loan. So I bought a house in the nice suburbs of Albany, where I grew up. I wanted to where I grew up, great school system.
Uh-huh.
So we closed on the house on November 23rd of 2014. And she said, well, you're getting a dog and a house, and I don't want my ring to be barking, which pretty much said that she wanted a ring. And she also said, I already picked it out. It's at the jeweler, and this jeweler does give discounts to cops. Um, and it was like a $6,000 ring, and I got it for 4,800.
Man,
I took
she
a
was just hustling you, like, get me
uh,
this, get me that.
yeah, and so I took a loan out for that. And then I had this huge proposal in the backyard, and it was romantic during a snowstorm with roses and a bonfire.
Aw.
And I proposed 2 weeks before Christmas. I get the dog the same day, and then 2 weeks later, she's not happy, and we got in a big fight in Christmas because it wasn't enough. And I said, I just bought you a house and a ring. What what more? Um, so then it really changed. Um, we did couples counseling,
Mhm,
and I was always the bad guy.
mhm.
And I was diagnosed with ADD as a kid, and mild dyslexia, and I was on Ritalin. She suggested that I should go to my general physician and get back on Ritalin, and that I should have a psychological workup on my ADD. And she actually printed up articles and brought to the counseling sessions of dating somebody with ADD and the issues and problems you deal with somebody with ADD.
Counselor did this, or your girlfriend, the narc?
No, the narc. So she was the fiance at this time. Um,
So
so
she
I,
brought in paperwork to the therapist to talk about your ADD, like you're the problem. Okay,
yeah, yeah,
just trying to tie that in right.
yeah. Oh yeah. She would be crying in there, and I would walk out feeling like a piece of shit. Um, and I still married her. I had friends who made jokes about not marrying, but I married her June of 2015, and on our honeymoon we got in a fight about not fighting, and then we got pregnant with my son Julian a month later, which was she didn't want any kids until she married me. She made me wait until we got married, and then once about a month before the wedding, she asked, uh, and I said, of course, I jumped on that, and I got super sperm because all my kids had been conceived within 1 month of trying.
Yeah.
Um, so she really changed and became a banshee during the pregnancy. I think she became very angry and resentful because she was losing her single life and going out and partying all the time. And
Well,
and
she
my
was
drink,
losing her sense of it. It's not all about me anymore.
yeah,
I now
yeah,
have to
and,
care about this kid and this guy, and it's not just me.
yeah, yeah. And I was drinking all the time heavily, and I was hiding it. I had an alcohol problem, and it was because the treatment that I was dealt with her. My neighbors stopped coming around. They wouldn't come over. We used to have big barbecues and bonfires, and they stopped
So
coming
give
over.
us some examples so our listeners that are questioning if their relationship was like yours and ours separately, because we don't have one,
Right, right.
of some things that she would do that people could relate to or say.
Um, when we would get in a fight, she would chase me room to room to room. I'm not somebody who likes to engage in fight. I don't really like confrontation. I like try to talk. And so if you trigger me, if you start yelling at me, I'm just going to disengage and walk.
Shut down.
That's that's what I do. So I would go from room to room to room, and she would follow me screaming at me about whatever it was. And I would leave. I would have to go to my mom's house, and she was very like jealous of my mother, especially my mom's cooking. She was a competition. So
Very
she
good.
always would say, "That's right, run to your mommy's house." And one day I ran into the bar down the street, and she came in and followed me and started screaming at me at the bar. Uh,
So
uh,
when did you say, well, when did you know that she was a narcissist? When did you discover that? And when did you decide that I can't live like this? This isn't healthy.
So I discovered she was a narcissist when she left me.
Okay.
Um,
How?
she left. So she's originally from California. She left me December 17th of 2016 and took my son to California.
She left
Uh,
you.
she left me. She left the house. She left the cats. She left
Left it
everything.
all.
And
Did she make
based,
leave the ring?
she took the ring.
Of course she did.
Yeah, she took the ring. So my buddy of mine, actually, when she left me, she walked away from four of her best friends that she's been friends with for 10 years or more, and still hasn't talked to them to this day.
Wow.
But I'll get into the details of what she did in a minute. But it was actually my neighbor who came to me and across the street, and I was broken. I was destroyed. And he actually said that she's a narcissist and you need to start researching about narcissism. And it, when a neighbor comes to you and says the whole neighborhood knew about who she is and they hated her,
Oh yeah.
and
My whole
and
neighborhood knew about
and
it.
and and they're telling me, I had neighbors tell me they had bets on how long my relationship would last, my marriage. And like I ended up, I had to put a fence up between my house and a neighbor's house when I was with her. I was going to do it anyway because I had the dog, but I had to because this neighbor didn't want to speak to us. It turns out this neighbor hated her, and when she left me, her husband and her were awesome to me, and they would cook me dinners and they'd take care of me and they'd come over and hang out. And so I started to research, and
Yeah,
my
I just
buddy told
want
me
to
about.
interrupt you real quick and tell you, my neighbors, when I finally left my narc, they all got me a greeting card, and inside of it, they told me how proud of them, how proud of me that they all were, and they all
Yeah.
contributed and got me Bed Bath and Beyond gift certificates because they knew I was financially abused and had no idea.
Wow.
So it's
See,
funny that your neighbors, they hated
yeah,
him and they didn't really want to hang out with me because he was always with me.
yeah,
But when I decided to leave, my neighbors like corralled,
yeah.
like
It's
gave me
amazing. Like,
gifts and yeah,
I'm thinking for years these people dislike me, or why do they stop coming around? And they actually said to me, the only time that you were fun and that you were yourself is when you were drinking. And
that's
and and they said, and a lot of times they were forced. Like if she would start an argument in front of my friends, they would side with her because they knew if they didn't side with her, they wouldn't be allowed to be over at my house anymore because she ousted several of my friends. And I'm just now rebuilding friendships.
I hear you. I'll get into mine later, but I have maybe two
Yeah.
because briefly when I moved to New York, met no one, and thought I was going to go live back in Florida. So I waited 2 years. And the night I decided I'm going to stay, it's a better education for my son here in New York, I went out as a shot girl and met my narc. And
Yeah.
from there on, that's where my disaster started. Was like, I
Yeah.
had no idea.
Yeah.
So going forward, so your neighbors told you that she's a narcissist and you should like research that.
So yeah, the first thing I found was a woman he recommended was Soul GPS, I think, is her YouTube. She's actually from another country like Sweden or Denmark, but
Soul
she
GPS.
Soul GPS.
Okay.
Uh, uh, she had a lot of YouTube videos, and so I just started researching about everything. And a friend of mine gave me a book, which is my relationship to a T. Was it's a yellow book, and it's called Psychopath Free.
Mm-hmm.
Recovery from emotion abuse of psychopaths, narcissists, and
I think
whatever.
yeah.
So that whole book was what I lived. It was everything, and it talks about the love bombing and the word salad and turning everything around on you and making you feel like you're the bad guy and you're crazy. And then I started going into the chat groups, and I met you in a chat group, and I actually I met a woman in another one who I have become best friends with. She lives in Long Island too, actually.
Interesting.
And I've gone down and visit her, and we FaceTime all the time, and we we talk about our narcs. But
But
they've
she was a survivor in another group like you were.
yeah,
She wasn't the
yeah.
administrator of one or anything.
No, she was just another member, and she saw my comments, and she private messaged me one day, and we just became close, good friends.
And those listening, just if you don't know what we're talking about, if you go on Facebook and you put in the search engine NPD abuse support groups or emotional support groups, one, you'll shit your pants by seeing how many there actually are. And then you'll vomit seeing how many people are in each of them.
Yeah.
It is absolutely astounding. I did not know that I was in a narcissistic personality disorder, abusive relationship myself until I was out of it and started counseling. But how Steve and I met, I guess we were both in the same type of groups. We both joined Facebook support groups and misery loves company, and we can all relate. If you go in them, and this is my problem, I talk about this in the episode right before this one, in episode 2, Facebook groups for support, quote unquote, and I'm using air quotes if you're not seeing the video of this, it could be helpful at first only because you're finding so much relation. Like when you think you're in a situation that nobody can relate to, it feels really lonely and it feels really isolating. But when you join a group that's got 85,000 people in it that are all typing scenarios that you're going, oh my God, that happened to me. And then in comments, you go with your story. And then in comments, and what happens is everybody in these groups are just thriving off of each other's abuse and misery and comparing stories and comparing answers. And this is what brought me to doing this whole podcast was these groups eventually, yes, at first they help you because you feel like you're relating with people and you don't feel alone. But then if you sit in them all day long, like Steve and I probably did, just reading and commenting and trying to make friendships with people that get you and get what you've been through, it then turns to toxic. And because that reason, the reason why I made this podcast and I made my own group, because there's nobody running these groups. There are very few. Steve, I think you said you're like on 5 right now or down.
No, I was on 5 always, and then I'm down to probably 2 now. And now it's more like the nice little meme quotes, the inspirational things. That's what I'm down to now, is just reading those.
That's what I opened my Instagram for. It was just for positive quotes and for announcements about the podcast. But I was in like 20 of them. And I'll tell you about a scenario that happened yesterday morning in a second. But the thing with these groups is there's nobody, you call them support groups, but there's nobody in there giving support, giving logical, medical, scientific facts. Like and what blows my mind is that there's so many people in there and there's so much stuff posted all day long. Like it's like a black hole. You can get lost in these groups, but there's nobody in there being the leader, being supportive, like directing these people. So I had opened mine, long story short, mine went silent for a little while because my daughter got really sick. She had a medical crisis. My daughter, Chloe too. And I had to just drop everything, as any parent, real good parent would do. They would drop everything and take care of their kid first, which is what I did. And the group was thriving and my group was going good because I was logging on. I was asking questions, doing Q&As and giving free self-help programs and creating documents myself with my own therapist. My therapist had my back. She was helping me develop my group, and it was getting results. And I every time I try to step away from helping people and mentoring people, God brings me back here. And the scenario I wanted to just lay out happened yesterday. I try to stay off Facebook because I just hate book. But because of all my business adventures and me trying to help other people, I can't disconnect it. So when I go on, I do what's called I post and ghost. I post what I gotta post and then I leave. I don't scroll. I can't scroll. I get infuriated. So the first thing when you open Facebook, you'll see 1 or 2, 3 posts at the top. Like I just can't unsee that. And majority of them are from these support groups. And yesterday someone put, and it's the same question I get and hear and see over and over and over, is can a narc ever change? That's the question. Can a narc ever change? Quick answer, Steve.
No.
Can a narc ever change?
No.
No. Okay. So you've learned that through your process. What happened in this group? I felt the need, because this is how I just help people, and I've never had any backlash. And I put what I answer everybody with is no, unfortunately not. If you look in the medical reference, the DSM-5, narcissistic personality disorder, there are 4 types, but they scientifically cannot feel the emotion of empathy. Like if you tell someone a heartbreaking story and a normal person would tear up or cry just listening to, that's someone who has empathy. Empathy means you could put yourself in somebody's shoes, you could feel their pain, you can be them mentally. Narcissists cannot. It is medically and scientifically proven. So I put, no, I'm sorry. Unfortunately, scientific, blah, 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 they cannot be. So don't, just best advice is don't waste your time trying. I spent 14 years, 5 therapists trying to change them. They don't change. And this other woman, and this is my problem with these groups, fires back at me and tells me, well, that's a mighty big statement from a stage manager. You can't just blanket everything, everybody. So I'm like, here's my problem with these groups. And she gives me some clickbait article of how narcissists can change. So I just replied, I said, listen, I'm sorry you're in denial. I'm sorry you don't believe in medical facts and science. I said, but I prefer to use reference books, medical reference books from the library or from the doctors or therapists that I see, versus finding any answer you want. You can get any answer you want on the internet if you look hard enough, is what I told her. And she kind of went back and forth with me. And I'm like, this is my problem with this group. You have no educational background. You're a victim, you're a survivor. You haven't even gotten to the level that they can't change. You're nowhere near at the level of helping people. And to just give myself my own a little backing, when I did this, I went weekly therapy for 2 years straight. My first visit is when I found out it was narcissistic personality disorder that my ex had, and that it was an abuse that I was going through. 2 years, every single week. Most CBT therapists want to see you 12 to 20 times, is what they say. A good therapist will see you, help you solve your problem, give you the tools to carry on life. A bad therapist will keep you there years and years and years to milk your money. My therapist kept me there because she started working with me. I started asking her questions that other people in these groups were asking. And I started finding myself typing and helping people in these groups. And I was like, wait a second, now I feel like I know it all. So I started taking CBT practitioner classes online. because I feel like I don't necessarily feel like I need a medical degree to tell people that you're with a narcissist and what I did to get out of that situation. Some people might want to hear from someone professional, but here's my take on it. One of my therapists that I took my narc to, which was one of the last ones, she was hot. She was 20 something. She had been on Dr. Phil once. And my narc liked her because she was hot and young, and he thought that, she was on his side. But this is my problem. She's got a degree, but she's 20 something. She's never had a kid. She's never had like a full big on boyfriend. As a matter of fact, she was applying for the Bachelorette when we were patients. And she's never been married. So I'm like, I understand that you go through school and you learn all this. But for me personally, unless you've been in the trenches, unless you've been a victim and come through it yourself with professional advice and resources, I think I'm just as qualified to help anybody as anybody who hasn't experienced what we've experienced, but has a medical degree. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
So there was just a couple other things that happened in that group, and I shut it down. And I was like, Chelsea, you need to work on other things today. You can't fight with these people. And those other things was to work on this podcast so I can help people. I get messages all the time because I am set up as a mentor in 2 of the groups, and I just don't have the time to go back and forth. So I want to invite people to listen to this podcast. I want to invite people to go back into my group, reach out to me on Instagram. And if you have a toxic scenario relationship, I want to help you get through it. I want to help you heal and recover and escape it. So with that being said, how did I find you? Like, let's wrap this up by you telling everybody how we connected, how I helped, how you helped yourself.
So, you found me in a chat room in one of the support group rooms.
Oh, okay. I was saying I don't do chat rooms.
I'm sorry.
That's fine.
Yeah. So you private messaged me and invited me to your group.
Oh, okay.
And you were starting this new. You started the Healthy Chelsea, and it was like, did you call it Me Movement or?
Can't see it above me, but I.
No, I can't see it. Yeah. I remember the logo too. The
logo's still there.
Yeah.
That's why my podcast is in those colors.
Yes. The Me Movement. Yeah, that's right.
Yes. The Me Movement we're going to get to, because that is my master plan. I am making that a huge self-help program that has the nuts and bolts of everything. And you've heard most of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the Me Movement is what I had it titled, my group. But unfortunately, I had the background picture still has the Me Movement recovery community on it, but people weren't finding me. So I wrote it down. My new title, so people can find it, is Emotional, Mental, Verbal, Financial Abuse Recovery Support.
I see. So all the fines, all the key words. Yeah.
That's know what the hell Me Movement is.
Yeah.
I had to. So if you're looking for a support group that actually gives support and is productive, you can go to my Emotional, Mental, Verbal, Financial Abuse Recovery Support group, and you'll see the Me Movement logo. And in there, and in the future podcasts, I'm going to introduce the Me Movement, but I am literally putting audios and worksheets and everything together to sell that as a huge project. Yeah. But anyway, so you got into my group. I found you. I was a worker.
Yes. So it really helped me out. It started my healing process. I mean, I was already in the intense therapy and counseling, and I did a lot of different channels, but it really started for me to look inside myself and started a healing process. And then during that healing process, I met another woman who I started to date at the end of my divorce, who was going through at the end of her divorce we were two narcissists who met, two victims of narcissists who met.
Survivors. Surviving.
And then only that relationship, it really broke my heart and only lasted for about 9 months. But
after a narc relationship really hurts.
Right? It really, I'm still recovering, and it'll be 2 years in January. But looking back now, we were both in a very unhealthy place, and we were both hurting. And I saw this one of these memes on Facebook, and exactly what this relationship. It was purposeful, and it was like a jet booster to ignite me to start moving forward in my life from that divorce.
People meme.
Yeah, and that's what I think that. Yeah, I've read that on one of the memes. Some relationships are meant as like a jet engine to ignite you from your past or something. It said something along those lines. Yeah. So looking back on it, I'm in my healing process of everything, and to touch also on how narcs don't change. Within 1 year of my divorce from my ex-wife, she bought a house and put it in her name and remarried somebody. And then in the second year, he bought a Mercedes and they just had a baby. So you see all the chess pieces being
pattern.
And he's a really good dude. He's a nice guy.
Of course.
And she would, so during our divorce, she would have him hand my son to me, thinking I would do a reaction, and I'm non-confrontational. I stuck my hand out like a gentleman and introduced myself, and ever since then, me and him would hit it off and start talking. Well, and she has him drive all the time when we exchange our son. Mm-hmm. Now he's not allowed to get out of the car, and so then I would roll the window down and start a conversation with him. Now he has to back the car in, so he's facing the opposite direction.
All by her orders.
Oh yeah, so it's funny now being in this place
on the outside looking in
and watching that relationship happen. And now my son is 4, and he's able to tell me what's going on in that house. Yikes. And nothing from what he said, no fights or anything, but it's stacking now because now there's a newborn as well. And now this new husband, like when Julian was born, she laid on the couch for 6 months and refused to do it. We had 2 nannies. She fired them too. So now I hear my son telling me that his stepfather's doing all the work in the house, and I sit back and I laugh because that was me. And now I see somebody out, and I'm like, he's my fucking spearhead. I'm like, that's what I say. I'm like, and I feel bad for him because he's a nice dude.
But just like everybody probably listening or in these groups, like until you get it and you're on the other side of it, you really don't see it.
She still tries, and I have a life coach as well, which has helped me through the breakup of the relationship after the divorce, divorce,
and how you've been busy.
I now I'm learning to love myself. I've gone, I hike all the time. I'm going hiking on Friday. I go to Adirondack Peaks. I want to be in.
What are some of the things? Did you do any of my? I think I had self-love challenge. I think I had a goal crusher. I had a couple.
I think all those goals I hit this summer, and
you did the goal crusher workshop.
No. I got to do that. I want to go and do. I got to do the work. But I remember your worksheets that I used to do. You had worksheets.
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering. Like, what in my groups helped you so that my people listening knows what to expect?
Because that was it was a while ago. So the workshop, I remember because each step of my healing process, I went and did something new. Uh, but it was I know those workshops really. I remember them and the worksheets with them. They were great because it's hard when you're in that space of finding out who your significant other really is, and learning that your whole relationship for that 6 years was a complete lie.
It was a sham, right?
Everything was. And then you don't know what to think in your head. For over a year my head was just cloudy. I couldn't think. So being able to actually, and I'm not one to put pen to paper. I hate it. So it was really helpful to actually, when you get to a point that pain is so high that all you want is peace and relief, and that hole to be filled again.
Right.
And the only way to start doing it is to start doing the work. And
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah, and it was
what I try to like give people, like you said, worksheets. I did most of the writing. I wrote
yeah,
it. I gave you fill in the blanks. I just gave you stuff to
it
think about because I
it
know.
was it was easy to do. And during my healing and my recovery process, I also put myself into a rehab for drinking, and I did an outpatient program, and I
I'm
did the
so
12.
proud of you. I did not know
Thank you.
all this.
Oh, you haven't. See, we need to do another session because I got the whole divorce series.
Hey,
The
we're a
actual.
divorce episode too.
I mean,
This
I mean,
podcast
I
has no end.
I mean this. I went through a custody war across 3,000 miles away.
Oh,
Brought my son back. Once I brought my son back, then the war was on, and she went after my career. She went after my reputation. She went after my finances.
so let's
Uh,
do this because we both have children, and a lot of people listening have children either with their narc or that are in that situation with them. We can do another episode just talking about co-parenting or narc parenting, however you want to call it, because I know I have a strategy and it's very tight and it's very difficult. But I don't want to drown people out with a 2 hour long podcast.
no, no, no. I mean, we could talk all day. That's the thing.
Yeah, people want to know this stuff. They want to know how you did it as a guy. I'm sure the guys listening who feel like they have
And
a small ding-a-ling because they feel like they've been put through this.
yeah, and
I know
and there's a trick. I have a trick to co-parenting too, and and sometimes you got to flip the switch, and you got to know the best advice about co-parenting with a narc is it better to be right, or is it better to have peace? And that's a really hard even my daughter, who's 11 years old, she's like, you have to do X, Y, and Z for her to pick up Julian. And I said, yeah, I do. And she's like, why? I'm like, because it's better to have peace than to be right. And I'm like,
that's good. That's very honorable of you. I use my daughter. I with both my kids. I have a son and a daughter, but my son's 20. He's almost 23. Um, I met my ex narc when he was 4, so he spent that whole life with that. But
yeah,
my co-parenting really is with my daughter and him. My son is
yeah,
from a previous relationship way
mhm,
back. But everybody know you figure it out. To
yeah,
me, I gotta be right because I am right because I'm a female. That's just how it is.
yeah. Of course. Oh, yes.
Duh. But I don't want to give them all out now, but I think that's a really good hook for another episode is co-parenting with an arc. So
Yeah, yeah,
we'll put that on the shelf, and those listening, stay tuned because we're gonna do that because I want you to share your tricks and tips, and I will
yeah.
tell what I'm doing because I'm still co-parenting with that narc, and I'm sure you are. My daughter's only 13. I got a long way to go. Um,
Oh,
but I've mastered it and I've figured it out and I've got the upper hand and
yeah,
we'll discuss all that.
yeah.
So let me just look because I had some questions. I want to make sure I went over everything. How you find me? What did you find? So I've heard all the great things you're doing to recover. I see you doing community outreach, even though you're a cop, which thank you for your service. Also, you're
Thank you.
a vet. We need more cops like you that are not confrontational, and I'm sure it's a
Thank you.
tough environment for you right now.
No,
Being a
it's
vet
tough,
and a
but
cop,
I
double whammy. Um, so, oh, just one other. No, I pretty much summed that up. Um, yeah, I think I pretty much went over everything. I just wanted to give the listeners a male view to know that, you know, it can happen to guys too, and it does, and you shouldn't be ashamed about it. Um, you know, you don't lose your identity, you don't lose your manlyhood. It happens. Life happens.
I was one of those that didn't even know it was happening to me.
Me too.
Uh,
I
I
didn't know
was,
until I was out.
yeah, and now I'm at the end of this. It's interesting. I'm going into a relationship with a woman who is my newest daughter's mom, and she's such a great person. She's such an amazing person, and I've taken the time to let a friendship evolve out of this because this was it was 2 weeks of hanging out with somebody intimately and then finding out she was pregnant,
Oh,
and that's basically what it was. And it was, all right, we're going to do this together as friends. And it was letting a friendship evolve into companionship and love. And she's it's abnormal feeling for me. That's why I've been so hesitant to make like the final step, because it's abnormal being in a healthy
a real
relationship.
healthy, yeah.
Yes, like somebody who's not going to yell at you, and somebody who's just kind to you all the time and nice and who supports you and what doesn't
You're
put
like,
you
wait,
down.
okay, I'm just waiting for those horns to grow. Like, what is it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and even my daughter, twice she said to me, "You need to be in a relationship with this woman." And
11?
she's 11, yeah. And all my family and my father wants me to. I acquired a house, and he wants me to move her in. They all love her, and I'm just like, not yet,
Pump the
not yet.
brakes. Pump the brakes. Yeah.
But it is, it's a breath of fresh air. We started something not knowing each other, and she ended up getting pregnant, and I stayed with her as a friend and supported her through her pregnancy. And I just fought a 2-year custody war with a narcissist for my son. There's no way I'm going to walk away
I was on
from.
a 2-year war.
Yeah,
Not
yeah.
custody. He
Oh,
doesn't want her. He
oh,
doesn't want to pay for her.
two.
But I went on a 2-year war in court over money. See, our
Oh,
stories are flipping too identical.
oh. Oh, mine was it was a 2-year war over my son, and it cost me about $75,000. And
Whoa!
I lost the house, the boat, everything. But I rebuilt myself. I did it.
Good. I'm
I
so
re
proud. What now? Can you like spot a narcissist from 100 million miles away like I can?
I can. Yeah, but the flip side is my friend who I met in the narc rooms. To her, everybody's a narc now. I'm like, no, they're not.
That's
Stop it.
someone who isn't truly educated on it all.
Yes, and she's like, they're a narc, they're a narc. I'm like,
Oh,
just because they're being selfish.
go ahead.
My problem is I can be very forgiving, and I give people the benefit of the doubt, and I still do. But even though I'm a cop, I know people lie to me all the time, but I still have trust to people. She's like, and that's the problem you get into as being a victim or a survivor, is you think everybody's a narc and you don't know who to trust.
Right. And I
But
hate that. I hate
yeah,
that because once you do identify and get educated on narcissism, um, you find out there's a lot of people out
there is, and now it's interesting because now you know what to look for.
there. Which is why
And
I've been single for 7 years now.
and I don't blame you now, because, and that's why I'm taking so long for. I am starting to really like being alone now,
Well,
and I like my alone time. I have my kids, all different schedules, but I can, like, I'm going hiking with a buddy on Friday, and I don't have to. I understand the relationship part is amazing too.
mhm.
I want somewhere in the middle where I still have my time for me.
But that means that you've grown, you love yourself, you're okay with being just yourself, being alone, especially
Yeah,
in the time of COVID with the pandemic and quarantining and all that. Like, this is a really tough time. And I gotta tell you, I'm not generally a lonely person, because I am very independent. I even thought, sorry, my daughter's, I even thought like, how, even if I get into a relationship now going forward, like, who, I control the TV. Like, who's
yeah, yeah, yeah. You,
like, I'm stuck in my routine because I literally have been single since I left my narc for 7 years. Yes, I've dated,
yeah,
I've gone out on some dates here and there, and I've,
yeah.
had some friends and whatever not, and had some good times. But I'm looking for a relationship and ready to settle down now because it's been a long time. But I have to tell you, any date or any email correspondence where if they spend more than 5 minutes talking about themselves and haven't asked 1 to 2 questions about me, gotta go to the bathroom
Yeah.
later. I
Yeah.
I can't, like, I just don't have the patience. I don't have the patience. I did it for way too long. I want to be with someone who's like-minded.
Yeah. Yeah.
My ex, I used to think opposites attract, and it did for a little while. It was cool to hear somebody else's other side and views.
Yeah.
It was interesting until I realized it was a whole manipulation process. But we'll get into that, into co-parenting. And I just want to thank you for sharing. And is there
Thank you.
anything that you want to just state or say to any of the listeners, since you're the first guest, the first male? Give you the floor to finish, to wrap up any
Um,
advice.
well, if there's any guys listening or in the future will watch, they know that, it's okay what you've been through. It happens to everyone. And the first step is just to start. I hate this cliche. I hate it in AA, but move a muscle, change a thought. And
Nothing
once you,
changes till something changes.
that's right. I hated it. I hated it when people told me about it and would say it to me or one day at a time. But it really is, and it's not the time of the healing process. It's what you do in that time that's important.
It's the work.
It's the work. It really is, and starting to become self-aware of your feelings. They say in AA, when you get sober, the good news is your feelings come back. Bad news is your feelings come back, and that's the same. And that's the same with this. We're in an addiction. We're all addicts, or we're love addicts with this trauma bond. So when they break away, you're fiending, and you're starving for all that, and so once you're able to start loving yourself instead of, and that was my problem, was I needed that other person to love me, and that was my fear of abandonment and being left. But now that I forced myself and made myself sit here for hours, I wouldn't watch TV, wouldn't read. I would sit for hours and just cry and just sit in my feelings. And
That's a part of doing the work. You have to go through the motions. You have to mourn.
yeah,
You have to
yeah,
let it out. Most people think, oh, I'm strong. I'll just push it down. It's eventually going to come out. You got to deal with it.
yeah. I made a decision, and part of my healing process was I would take long drives. I still do. Just drives anywhere and listen to a lot of motivational speakers, and and that really, that you get some aha moments, and you start really becoming self-aware of your feelings, and all that is just, I made a decision, and I heard this in one of the motivational, you can either choose to be better or you choose to be bitter, and I didn't want to be bitter. I didn't want to be angry.
Yeah.
I didn't want the pain.
Right.
So I wanted, huh?
It's exhausting to be bitter.
It really is, and really what launched me was the riots, and And this being a veteran and being a police officer, it really broke my heart. It crushed me. It was like a huge wave coming over this country and everybody in the riots. And actually, in my police department, there was 1,000 protesters, and myself and one other officer were the only officers that took a knee. And then there was huge riots, and I'm a community police officer in the Black community where there's a lot of crime. And just every day after that, I just made it. It was like everything else. It became part of my healing process. Was putting myself and investing into the community really launched me. Community service, and they said that in AA, and I would always roll my eyes. And once I started to love my community, and I just get on my bicycle every day, as hard as it was, as much as I didn't want to do it, as much as nobody else would get on a bike because they were afraid to get shot, other officers. And I'm like, I'm on a bicycle. Somebody can tap me out, and I go skydiving. That was
Yeah,
another
I
healing
see
thing.
that. You
Yeah,
fucking nuts.
yeah, yeah. That's another part of my healing process. For my 40th birthday, I'm like, fuck it. I'm going skydiving, and I've done 4 times now.
Listen, Goal Crusher Workshop. That's you
Yeah,
write down things you want
yeah,
to do. This is we're expanding here when I didn't want to, but some self
yeah.
healing steps are as simple as going out and holding the door for someone, or
It
telling
really is.
someone you like their shirt. If you go out tomorrow, this is my challenge to any listeners. If you're listening to this today, go out tomorrow, or if it's early enough today, do it today. Go compliment one person, and not
Yeah,
a an insincere compliment. Like literally open your eyes and look about the people around you if you're not in quarantine. And if you see somebody's shirt or necklace or even mask or their
yeah,
hair, like anything, go tell them. Because in the world we live in today, it's so, and everybody's so hateful.
yeah,
And if you just remember to flip the script, the dopamine feeling, it's like a drug. It really is. If you tell someone, hey man, I like your shoes, those are freaking awesome. Not only do now you feel better, trust me, that's why it's a challenge, you'll feel it,
yeah,
but that person might be having the most shittiest day ever, and someone just said something nice to them.
yeah,
So
yeah.
I'll be diving into healing and recovery and process and steps and all that stuff in upcoming episodes, but just you saying that, I could just tip off on that. Just helping your community, start going to a soup kitchen, or like I said, if you don't have the time for that,
Yeah,
tell someone that their sunglasses are bomb.
yeah,
It will
yeah.
start the process.
It does.
So I appreciate you. I appreciate your testimonial on
Thank
my
you.
website. There's nothing more gratifying to me than hearing that somebody that has interacted with me or my programs or my lives or just my resources, that I was able to help someone. If I helped one person, then I know that I'm doing the right thing and that God
Yeah.
led me to the right place. Because Lord, I keep trying to go in all these different directions,
Yeah.
and I keep coming here. So,
No, you help me out a lot. I'm always looking for you and what you're posting.
oh, I appreciate it.
I,
Post and ghosts.
I did enjoy the Thanksgiving post. You got the turkey on your head.
Oh, I brought, because my whole family, we Zoomed. Obviously, we did it on Easter, but one of my cousins brought a turkey hat over probably like 8 years ago, and we all wore it. But I bought a pack off Amazon for all. It was just the 4 of us, and we all had on
Yeah.
turkey hats. And when we were on the Zoom, it's kind of like a family tradition now. But
Yeah, it was funny.
I got a little, this podcast is very serious, so I'm trying to give a little personality to it. I do have a personality. Now that I'm recovered, I'm not just a miserable bitch anymore. I do go through emotions like every other normal person. But I got my personality back. I got my jive back, and I'm a fun person. And I like to keep it that way. So I thank you, and I appreciate the compliments. I appreciate your testimonial, and everything that
Very
you've
welcome.
done. I'm very proud of you. Thank you for your service. Thank you for being, an officer in this climate. Um, and
Thank you. Thank you.
we're
I
going to do
enjoy
this
what I
again.
do.
We're doing, stay tuned for co-parenting with the narc with Steven Silver.
Yeah.
We'll wrap this up here. I again, just appreciate everything, and I look forward to our next podcast. So
Sounds
we will
great.
talk again soon.
All right. Take care. Have a good night.
You too.
All righty.